The air in the Grand Assembly Hall was thick with a despair so palpable it seemed to cling to the polished mahogany and silenced microphones. Around the colossal oval table, the faces of the world's financial leaders and heads of state were etched with a weariness that transcended mere jet lag. For 3 days, they had grappled with the unanswerable question, the looming shadow that threatened to swallow economies whole: global debt. Every nation was a debtor, every major economy underwater, and yet the collective balance sheets defied logic. If every country owed, who, precisely, was the creditor? Dr. Eris Thorne, a man whose reputation for brilliance was only slightly overshadowed by his penchant for uncomfortable truths, leaned back in his assigned seat, far from the central table. He was an outsider, brought in by a desperate UN Secretary General who had run out of conventional options. Eris wasn't an economist in the traditional sense. He was a macro historian of capital flows, a specialist in the long-term patterns of human exchange. He had been quietly observing the frantic projections, the frantic denials, the increasingly desperate pleas for a solution no one seemed capable of articulating. The numbers simply don't add up, the exasperated governor of the World Bank declared, slamming a fist on the table. We have traced every interstate loan, every bond issue, every derivative. Even accounting for internal national debts, there is a staggering, inexplicable deficit, a phantom liability that aggregates across the entire global system. It's as if someone or something is consistently extracting value, yet never showing up in the books as an owner. Eris cleared his throat, a small sound that nonetheless cut through the tension. All eyes turned to him, some with skepticism, others with a glimmer of desperate hope. "Gentlemen, ladies," Eris began, his voice calm, resonating with the quiet authority. "You are looking for a creditor within the system. You won't find one there. This isn't a debt in the conventional sense. It's older, deeper, and far more pervasive." He walked to a screen and projected a complex chart. It wasn't the usual tangle of national debts. Instead, it showed an underlying, persistent negative value that had been present in every major civilization's economic structure, even before the advent of modern banking. A constant low hum of obligation that never quite disappeared, regardless of empires rising or falling, currencies collapsing or thriving. "I call it the primal obligation," Eris explained, "a foundational deficit that humanity has carried since the dawn of organized society. It's the cost of progress itself." Scoffs rippled through the room. "The cost of progress? Dr. Thorne, are you suggesting some sort of cosmic accounting error?" asked the US Treasury Secretary, his voice laced with thinly veiled exasperation. "Not an error," Eris corrected, "an inherent characteristic. Think of it. Every civilization, every nation, every innovation has been built on a foundation of future expectation. We borrow from the future to build the present. We leverage the potential of tomorrow to fuel the ambitions of today. We promise returns that haven't been generated yet, consume resources that haven't fully regenerated, and design systems that anticipate growth that is not guaranteed." He switched the slide to show images. Ancient Sumerian ledgers, Roman imperial accounts, the early Chinese dynasty's attempts at centralized finance. In each, Eris had identified the telltale signature, a portion of the collective wealth that seemed perpetually out of reach, always owed, never quite repaid. "I spent years in forgotten archives," Eris recounted, his gaze sweeping over the baffled faces, "deciphering texts from economic systems that predate capitalism, feudalism, even barter, and the pattern was always there. The concept of an unquantifiable debt, a debt to the coming dawn, or the ghost's burden, appeared in various cultural mythologies, often dismissed as superstition. But these weren't superstitions. They were intuitive acknowledgments of a fundamental economic reality. His research had led him from the dusty basements of national banks to the digital catacombs of historical data, then further into obscure philosophical treatises and even ancient creation myths. He'd discovered references to the Great Weaver's Loom in Mesoamerican texts, which wove the fabric of existence from borrowed strands of time. He'd found whispers in forgotten Mesopotamian tablets about the tithe to the unmade future. And in Norse sagas, the idea of a debt owed to the next sunrise. This creditor, Eris continued, gesturing to the blank screen, is not an entity you can name or negotiate with. It is the sum total of all our unfulfilled potential, all our projected growth, all the resources we consumed with the promise of future abundance. It is the future generations we have already obligated, the technologies we have yet to invent to solve problems we have yet to create, the ecological balance we have disrupted in the name of advancement. A tense silence fell over the room. Are you saying humanity itself is the creditor? The German finance minister finally asked, his brow furrowed in concentration. And the debtor, Eris affirmed. We are caught in a self-sustaining cycle. Every time we invest in a new technology, build a grand infrastructure project, or even declare war, we are, in essence, borrowing from a future that has yet to exist. We're drawing against a line of credit extended by our own collective potential. The primal obligation is the accumulated interest on that loan, demanding payment not in gold or fiat, but in innovation, sustainability, and genuine, meaningful progress. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. When we fail to deliver on those promises, when our innovations are destructive, our growth unsustainable, our progress illusory, the interest compounds. It manifests as environmental collapse, social unrest, resource scarcity, and yes, this baffling, unresolvable global financial crisis. Eris walked to the table, his voice softening but gaining intensity. Think of it this way. The moment a society decides to move beyond mere subsistence, to grow, to expand, to build something greater than what currently exists, it inherently takes on this debt. The pyramids of Giza, the Roman aqueducts, the Great Wall, the space race, the internet, all were built on a borrowed future, a collective belief that the effort and resources expended would be justified by the future they helped create. The creditor is the silent, abstract entity that ensures this cosmic balance sheet remains in check. It doesn't demand payment in our currency, it demands payment in the form of a viable future. So what do we do? Someone asked, their voice barely a whisper. Declare bankruptcy to the future? Eris offered a faint smile. You cannot declare bankruptcy to yourself, but you can change your spending habits. For centuries, we have tried to pay off this debt by generating more growth, more consumption, more expansion. We tried to grow out of it, only to find the debt growing faster, because our growth was often reckless, unsustainable, and borrowed even more heavily from the future. The primal obligation isn't asking for more money, it's asking for a fundamental shift in our relationship with time, with resources, and with our own potential. We need to stop seeing the future as an endless well from which to draw, Eris urged. We must start seeing it as a partner, a co-creator, whose resources and stability we are morally obligated to preserve and enhance. The payment due isn't an arbitrary number. It's a measure of our stewardship, our innovation towards resilience, our commitment to equity, and our dedication to a truly sustainable existence. He returned to the screen, showing his final graph. This one wasn't a projection of doom, but a speculative model of a different path. It showed an equilibrium point, not where debt was eliminated, but where the primal obligation stabilized, where the interest rate, so to speak, leveled out, because humanity was consistently delivering on a viable future. The ultimate payment, Eris concluded, is not the elimination of debt, but the realization of a future worthy of having been borrowed from. It demands that our innovations serve life, not merely profit, that our consumption respects planetary boundaries, that our progress is measured not just in GDP, but in well-being, ecological health, and collective potential. When every country is in debt, the creditor is the future itself, and it's asking us to finally pay it forward, not just push it off. The silence in the room was different now. It was no longer a silence of despair, but one of profound, dawning understanding. The leaders looked at their hands, at the ceiling, at each other. They had spent their lives chasing numbers, balancing ledgers, and now, a man from the margins had revealed the true, invisible ledger that governed them all. The debt wasn't to a bank, or a nation, or a secret cabal. It was to the silent, ever-present promise of what humanity could yet be, if only it chose to honor its obligations. The magnitude of the truth, once revealed, was staggering. The leaders looked at their hands, at the ceiling, at each other. They had spent their lives chasing numbers, balancing ledgers, and now, a man from the margins had revealed the true, invisible ledger that governed them all. The debt wasn't to a bank, or a nation, or a secret cabal. It was to the silent, ever-present promise of what humanity could yet be, if only it chose to honor its obligations. The magnitude of the truth, once revealed, was staggering. The future was not just a destination, it was the ultimate, patient creditor, waiting for humanity to finally understand the terms of its loan.